MotoGP's nail-biting title run hits Thailand for Chapter 18, the gripping story of Jorge Martin versus Pecco Bagnaia. A 5-hour drive from the bus to Bangkok, the Chang International Circuit arrived with a bang in MotoGP in 2018, and Buriram is known as a city of happiness, so he'll be heading to Malaysia with the biggest smile. It's time to race in MotoGP. So first on the calendar, back in 2018, that season voted the best Grand Prix of the season. Always great to be at the Chang International Circuit in north-east Thailand. 4.55 kilometres, 2.830 miles in length. 12 corners, 7 right, 5 of them left. Turn 2, more of a fast kink through there at 6th gear, approaching 350 kilometres an hour. An abundance of overtaking opportunities here in Buriram Sector 1. Just the 2 corners, the first corner and that fast sweep through turn 2. Good overtaking hotspot in 2, 3. Tightens up through 5, 6, 7 and 8. And there is always drama, isn't there, here in Thailand in that tight turn 12 where Jorge Martin completed the treble here 1 year ago. The Michelin rear tyres in the slicks at least get their highest work out through turns 2 and turn 3, although there's a bit of a weather update coming your way shortly. Overtaking hot spots into 1, 3, 5 and 12, and rewind 12 months ago as Jorge Martin held off Pecco Bagnaia and Brad Binder to win the 4th closest Premier Class podium. Coming up next then in MotoGP, can Marc Marquez find his way back to the top step of the podium in Buriram for the second row? It was a brilliant beast in the Buriram sprint, and now Enea Bastianini is on the hunt for Sunday's success from second. Well beaten in the Buriram sprint, Pecco Bagnaia vows to come out fighting from pole position. And Jorge Martin is moving closer to claiming MotoGP's ultimate prize. The World Championship leader fires away from the front row. So yesterday, in sweltering heat and humidity here at the Chang International Circuit, it was world champion Pecco Bagnaia that led the field away in the 13-lap TSO sprint. Ran wide though by an aggressive move from third on the grid by world champion leader Jorge Martin. That immediately put Enea Bastianini in control at the front. A lead he was not to relinquish. Martin slipped back to 5th place, but worked his way back through in great style, passing Pedro Acosta, Marc Marquez, and eventually his chief championship rival Pecco Bagnaia with this hard move into turn 7. It was the beast though in Buriram that won the TSO sprint. 5 consecutive sprint podiums now for Enea Bastianini as he fights for 3rd in the World Championship. But it is all eyes on the tussle for glory here in Thailand. The World Championship battle, which is raging for the 2nd year in a row between Jorge Martin and reigning king Pecco Bagnaia. It is very much advantage Martin as we head into this 18th round of the season. 22 points clear is the Spanish rider after he got the better of Bagnaia in the Buriram sprint here yesterday. Some great Moto 3 and Moto 2 action has already come your way here in Thailand. Both of them ran on dry surfaces. The Moto 2 race, no spoilers here, but it was red flag late on as rain spots started to fall. But potentially a very nervy, anxious and tense scenario has just intensified for Martin and Bagnaia as it is raining, and it has been raining at its heaviest since we had torrential downpours at around 7 AM local time this morning. When you're fighting for the biggest prize in motorcycle racing, your heart would have sank when, what, about 45 minutes ago, It started raining once again here in the PT Grand Prix of Thailand. Looking out of our commentary box window, Matt Burt-Lewis will be in the booth with Simon Crafar down on pit lane. It does look like, when it's lights out for a 26-lap Grand Prix of Thailand, it will start on a wet surface. This is about as tense as it gets, Lewis, when you're in the shoes of both Martin and Bagnaia.
Yeah, they would have been sitting from the sidelines watching the Moto2 race going on, and I'm not sure they would have been too happy when they saw the rain falling as heavily as it did. Let's get the very latest on what conditions are like. Is the rain still falling? Simon, down to you.
Well, I was about to tell you no. I'm out on the pit wall and it's completely wet. It had stopped raining probably 5-10 minutes ago, and now it's spitting again. So I'm guessing it's going to stay wet at least at this stage. And yeah, I spoke to a few team managers, and the Gino Borsoi probably the most interesting, because he's saying, look, we just need Jorge to feel what it's like out there and bring it home as close as possible to Pecco and not fall off the thing. You know, that's the main, that's what he's saying to Jorge. Easier said than done, because Jorge's been telling us that I mean, he went, you know, banzai yesterday, didn't he? He rode it like his life depended on it yesterday, and you know, that he wasn't thinking about a world championship, and he said that that's how he concentrates the best, you know, and doesn't make mistakes. And so if you put all that together, he's still got to push today to stay focused. And then we all know that Bagnaia, he has to beat Jorge today.
Yeah, in conditions such as this, if you're Jorge Martin with a 22-point World Championship lead, you want as few variables thrown into the action as possible. You just want a clean, dry race where the pace of rider and the Ducati GP24 can come to the fore. In the end, what we may end up seeing here this afternoon is a race where you need to adapt to the conditions as well as you can. Will we have some sort of flag-to-flag scenario coming up? It depends, I guess, as to if and when the rain does indeed stop. It was wet, of course, earlier on this morning for the warm-up session. It then dried up enough for a dry start to the Moto3 battle earlier on today. These were the scenes at the end of the Tissot sprint yesterday. Pecco Bagnaia speaking to our own Jack Appleyard following the action, says he saw Jorge Martin touching the green 4 times. I counted 4, but maybe I was wrong. Well, we certainly saw 2 on the screen for Jorge Martin, the first of which saw him hit with a track limits warning, and then there was this incident where he was right on the edge of the curb coming through the right-hander there of turn 7. Unless you go on the green 3 times during a Tissot sprint, you will not receive a long lap penalty. Pecco Bagnaia thought it was 4. Jorge Martin, in tongue firmly in cheek, said, hey, maybe it was 8. It certainly wasn't as many as that yesterday, but Jorge Martin, in the end, was the rider who emerged from the battle between the 2 title contenders with second place. 9 very valuable World Championship points to Pecco Bagnaia's 7, which he secured for 3rd place. And you can see in the foreground there, the rain is bucketing down once again in front of this packed grandstand, who've certainly had their fair share of entertainment already here today at the Chang International Circuit. They certainly bring the noise, don't they, on race day here. It's one of the atmospheres that you really have to feel and experience on this MotoGP calendar, and it's here where we'll start the season next year. Pedro Acosta coming through turn number 3 yesterday. He lost the front and extended his recent run of DNFs. Acosta doing his level best to try and go with the all-conquering Ducatis at the front of the field. An incident which I guess has potentially led to a change in mindset for Pedro Acosta, perhaps accepting that he needs to try and stay on the racetrack rather than try and chase a result which isn't necessarily attainable. Well, we saw that big incident in the sprint yesterday between Jorge Martin and Pecco Bagnaia. Brilliant overtake from Jorge Martin. Pecco Bagnaia not necessarily happy with what he saw up ahead of him as far as track limits are concerned. Simon, what was your view of it all?
Well, yeah, there's been a lot of talk about it. I was getting harassed at dinner. You're going to pay the bill, and a lot of people wanted to know what I thought of that, and just bringing that up because I didn't expect so many people to be wanting to know should he have a penalty. And my thought on it is there is no rule against running onto the green twice, you know, during the sprint, 4 times in the main race like today. And yes, I'm sure that the stewards would make Jorge drop a position if he actually completed the overtake on the green, meaning, you know, he went out onto the green to overtake. And the thing is, he'd completed the overtake and then on the exit ran wide a little, touched the green, so it just counted as a track limits. And yeah, look, it can be changed if enough people in this paddock pushed to say you're not allowed to touch the green before or after an overtake. They could change the rules, but I believe that it is not in the sport's interest to go that way. You know, get more and more strict. To me, it's kind of like you know, the modern version of. I know it's not as extreme, but the corkscrew cut. You know, if. And that is more extreme, you know, that happened in the past, but basically I think it'll stay as it is, and it was absolutely fine.
It's certainly where possible, we want this to be settled on the racetrack, this battle for the World Championship, rather than settled in any steward's office or interference with penalties and the such like. Well, no one could interfere with Enea Bastianini yesterday. Of course, took full advantage of the drama at the start as Jorge Martin got as aggressive as he could to try and get ahead of Pecco Bagnaia earlier on. That left the door wide open for Enea Bastianini to take the early lead, and once the beast got his nose in front, there was no one that was going to stop him. A second sprint win of the year for Enea Bastianini. Can he complete the double as he did in Silverstone? Well, he might have to do it in wet conditions if he's going to complete the double here.
Marquez, as he so often does, getting mobbed in the paddock here as he comes to the back of the Gresini Racing garage. A podium in what, about over an hour's time here for the 31-year-old Spaniard would see him notch his 150th career top 3. What a story, what a career it has been, and maybe there's even better days still to come for Marquez, who certainly in the dry conditions felt like at best today was going to be 3rd or 4th place. We saw him have nothing for the likes of the GP24 directly ahead of him in what was a remarkable Saturday here in Thailand for Ducati, as they locked out the top 8 places in that 13-lap sprint here yesterday. Marquez, though, these are much more sort of conditions you feel that will certainly suit him. Probably suit anybody bar Martin and Bagnaia. Of course, those two with the most to lose in terms of the championship. Jorge Martin himself said in the pre-event press conference in Phillip Island just over a week ago, a DNF at this crucial juncture of the season would be an absolute disaster. Pecco Bagnaia, who has described this year's title fight as a championship of mistakes, well, both he and Martin know one more could be so decisive in the final 5 races of this season.
22 points is the advantage for Jorge Martin. Sounds a lot, and it does sound a lot when we tell you that he could finish 2nd behind Pecco Bagnaia in the 3 remaining races and the 2 remaining sprints and be crowned champion. But of course, it could easily disappear much quicker than that. All it takes is one more mistake. All it takes is a Sachsenring scenario, a Jerez scenario, where Jorge Martin didn't score and Pecco Bagnaia scored the maximum, 25 points, and it can all turn on its head once again. And Jorge Martin knows all too well from how close he came last year to winning the World Championship that it can only take the most trivial of moments to potentially cost you the lot. And Jorge Martin certainly has come too far to try and let this slip now. I spoke to him yesterday, asked him about the pressure of fighting for the World Championship. I asked him whether it was a burden or whether it was actually a privilege to be in this kind of position, something that he's worked towards for his entire career. And Jorge Martin said, hey, pressure is when I was a young rider as a child, wondering if I was even going to have the budget to race the following year. This is what I've worked my whole career towards, and he has 3 more Grand Prix weekends to potentially complete the job.
How much will experience of last year really weigh on the shoulders of Jorge Martin? How much will he have learnt taking the negative aspects of his title fight with Bagnaia 1 year ago, where he did say the pressure on his shoulders was too much. This time last year, he was loathing life. You get a feeling at the moment he's loving life a little bit more at ease with his potential, a little bit more belief and confidence in what he can achieve himself. He said this time last year, sleepless nights, what should have been a dream fighting for the MotoGP World Championship for the first time, turned into his worst nightmare. I have to say, on the occasions that my path has crossed with Jorge this weekend, albeit briefly in the press conference on Thursday, a little bit of a catch-up with him pre his Friday media debrief, he does look super cool, super relaxed. If there are any nerves and butterflies, I have to say he's doing a phenomenal job of disguising it right now.
Well, it's conditions such as this which might well see those butterflies rise to the surface once again, because as mentioned a few moments ago, he would have wanted just a clean, easy, dry Grand Prix this afternoon. That is not what he is going to get. Marco Bezzecchi starts from 4th on the grid this afternoon. Bezzecchi, of course, has got some successful weather experience. 3 MotoGP victories for Marco Bezzecchi, the first of which did come in wet conditions when he triumphed in Argentina right at the beginning of last year. And he does have some good pedigree at this circuit too. Fastest lap last year in that thrilling battle with the 3 riders up ahead of him. And of course, his maiden MotoGP pole came here 2 years ago. This might well play into the hands of those riders on this grid. Basically, you'd argue 20 of the 22 who've got nothing to lose today.
150th Grand Prix start coming up for Marco Bezzecchi. Of course, in that wet race here 2 years ago, he did lead for the first 3 laps before he dropped back down the order and missed the points in 16th place. You feel it's kind of imperative that Pedro Acosta sees the checker flag here this afternoon. That great pole position at the Mobility Resort in Motegi, the 3rd youngest rider in Premier Class history to take a pole position in MotoGP. Well, since then, it's been a bit of a sorry story, hasn't it? Crashing out of the lead in the Motegi sprint, crashing out a second when he was in pursuit of Bagnaia in the main Japanese Grand Prix. Crashed out of the sprint in Phillip Island last weekend, tweaked some ligaments in his left shoulder, which ruled him out of the Australian Grand Prix. And unfortunately, the DNF tally increasing as Acosta failed to see the checker flag in yesterday's 13th lap sprint.
Brad Binder starts from 13th on the grid. 5th row for the rider, of course, fought for the victory right until the very final sector here 1 year ago, when, of course, on the last lap he exceeded track limits and ultimately lost 2nd place. And those points certainly made a difference, didn't they, in the final reckoning between Pecco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin. It's been a weekend of fine margins for Binder so far. Narrowly missed out on qualifying 2 on Friday, then had the same fate Saturday morning in Q1 when he missed out by mere thousandths of a second on making his way into the pole position shootout. That leaves him 13th on the grid, sharing that 5th row with his teammate here, Jack Miller. And Jack Miller's certainly a rider who will feel uber relaxed and relishing the conditions that lie in store for him.
Yeah, you always felt Binder's current form and some of the struggles with the factory KTM right now, that was going to be a big ask for him to repeat his double podium at Buriram here 1 year ago, which has sadly proven to be the case so far for the 29-year-old Spaniard. A few pockets of Australian fans, probably from Western Australia and the Northern Territories, who've decided to come to rather warmer climes, not necessarily drier climes, than Phillip Island last weekend.
No.
As Jack Miller, 10th place in Motegi a few weeks ago, one of only 3 top 10s so far this season for Jack Miller. He was the runner-up, though, of course, in the wet race here in 2022 behind Miguel Oliveira, so do keep a close eye on Thriller Miller, firing away from 15th spot.
And in that very race, it's not going on too far of a limb to say that Johann Zarco might have won it in those latter stages, given how quick he was in the second half of that Buriram battle. He, of course, caught at a vast rate of knots his fellow Ducati rider at the time, Pecco Bagnaia, before riding shotgun behind him and playing the team and championship game. Of course, you remember back in those particular months and weeks, it was a Yamaha rider that Pecco Bagnaia was battling against for the World Championship, and Johann Zarco dutifully sat behind him. There'll be certainly none of that this afternoon for Johann Zarco from 12th on the grid, and is this the big payday potentially lying in store for him and for LCR Honda?
He wanted a new contract with Ducati, didn't he, for Johann Zarco? Yeah. That's the reason why he was perfectly happy to play wingman to Bagnaia, because without any question, that 2022 race, he was the fastest rider on the circuit when the rain was sort of easing off. So then, we are 25 minutes away from our scheduled lights out here in the Grand Prix of Thailand. What is going through the minds of our title contenders, Martin versus Bagnaia? It's the rematch of 2023. On that occasion, of course, it went the way of Bagnaia after a tense final round showdown in Valencia. Simon just telling us from down in pit lane that the rain is still falling heavy enough to keep this wet for the start of the Grand Prix. Of course, flag-to-flag scenarios in MotoGP. When it was wet in the warm-up session this morning, Piero Talamasso said because of the hot ambient temperatures, the pick for the rain tyres would be the medium-medium combination as the sighting lap gets underway. That heavy cloud cover, unfortunately, has been with us since we woke up here in Buram. Some of us earlier than others, but when I was awake and stirring at around 6:30, it was dry, and then sort of half an hour later, it was sort of the torrential rain which so often can hit this tropical part of Asia.
Yeah, the sky was so dark on the way into the circuit, and around about 7:45 this morning, we had a wet Asia Talent Cup race earlier on, a dry-ish Moto3 race, I guess it's fair to say, and then a wet end to a dry Moto2 battle. We're getting our first opportunity here to see what track conditions are, and plenty of spray being kicked up by the reigning world champion there, Pecco Bagnaia, as he makes his way into turn 12. These are actually crucial corners and crucial moments here for the riders, because after this sighting lap, the next chance they'll get to sample the conditions on Michelin wet tyres will be on the warm-up lap.
And already you can see the track a lot wetter than what the riders encountered in this morning's warm-up session. Alex Marquez has crashed on the sighting lap. He starts running away. Now he's legging it back to that crashed Ducati. Alex Marquez then has crashed on the sighting lap.
He's down at turn 11, so he's not far from the pit lane entry from there. Here it is, you'll see it just on the right of the picture. Alex Marquez going down, and of course we're in a scenario, if we do have a flag to flag and that bike doesn't get repaired, Alex Marquez will only have one. Well,
and that just gives you the clearest indication of just how tricky and treacherous the conditions are before we've even got the start of this Grand Prix. I'm just going to have our commentary box window. Taka Nakagami tiptoeing his way through turn 5. He's barely at sort of walking pace at the moment. The Japanese rider tentatively now coming through turn 7, where Martin made the aggressive move to take second from Bagnaia in the sprint. I mean, if this rain continues to worsen, if the conditions do deteriorate, we may be potentially considering a slight delay to proceeding. I'm just looking at our commentary box window as well. The marshals have got Alex Marquez's Ducati to the side of the wall. Marquez has seconded a scooter from one of the local marshals. He said, I'll ride this back, mate. I'll be quicker than you.
I'm in a rush, unfortunately, so I need to get back. You saw the frantic activity down there at Grassini, because you would imagine that other bike is set up for the dry in case of a flag to flag. They're going to have to change that now over to the wet. What
a high pressure situation this is. They all are, aren't they, at this stage of the season, particularly so when you're the reigning world champion, when you're trying to recover a 22-point gap to series leader Jorge Martin. And can Enea Bastianini complete the double here in Thailand? Let's get the thoughts of Davide Tardozzi, who joined Simon.
Davide, I was thinking exactly what Matt Burt was just saying, the pressure on Pecco today, you know, knowing in these conditions that he really does have to beat Jorge Martin, and would really like your thoughts on that. And Enea, is he likely to be as fast as yesterday in these conditions, or competitiveness anyway?
Regarding Pecco, we hope that the changement we make on the bike after the warm-up it works, because Pecco was not absolutely happy about the setting, and honestly Mark and Jorge was much faster than us, so he needs to be brave and cross the finger that the engineers make the right changes. Regarding Enea, he's not his best condition this, but you know, he always surprises us, so we'll see what it's gonna be.
One more question. We saw a few of the Ducati riders, Mark, Pecco, Jorge, all have spinning up off the practice wet starts this morning. Is there some adjustments been made there to improve it?
Yeah, we make a small adjustment, but you know, the the surface is very slippery on the start, and we'll see what they're going to be. I think that they need to be concentrate and don't be too much in a hurry. You know.
Thank you, Davide.
I've got to say, Davide Tarlozzi sounding rather relaxed and rather composed down on the grid. Very, very soon it'll, of course, all be in the hands of Bagnaia and Bastianini as they look to continue Ducati's incredible domination of the MotoGP World Championship. Last time out in Australia, the top 6 for all Ducatis, the first time that has happened for a single manufacturer since the French Grand Prix in 1997, when Honda locked out the top 6 with Mick Doohan, Carlos Checa, Tadej Okada, Alex Crivier, Takuma Aoki and Alex Barros. Of course, they had the top 8 yesterday in the Tissot Sprint. Nerves are plenty, I'm sure, in Prima Ducati, as well as Jorge Martin looks to build on what feels like at the moment a pretty comfortable 22-point lead in the World Championship. Let's get some thoughts from the boss, Gino Borsoi, who's with Simon.
Gino, Jorge rode completely on the limit yesterday. It looked amazing what he pulled off, but your nerves today must be quite high in these conditions, hoping Jorge can bring it home to some decent points.
Yeah, well, obviously compared to yesterday, completely different story, but I think we are in a good position, because this morning during the rain on warm-up session, it was good, it was fast, the feeling was quite okay. The only concern that we have is the start, that everybody make a mistake. We also make a 2-time mistake, so let's see the start, but in my opinion, under the rain, we are okay.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah, good luck to Prima Ducati. Good luck, of course, to both of our 2 title contenders, both of them more than deserving, more than worthy world champions in what has been another intriguing and toing and froing title battle between the pair of them, as we get the Thai traditions here ahead of the Buriram Clash in 2024. Great crowd here today. 85,000 fans have packed into the Chang International Circuit. I'm sure a lot of them will be back with us again in a few months' time here in March. Just a reminder, we've told you a few times over the course of the weekend, but just in case, March the 2nd will be our season opener in 2025.
Just an update on Alex Marquez, by the way. He's, of course, back in the pit lane now. His motorcycle that he crashed is still on its way back to the Gresini box. Pit lane exit has now closed, so Alex Marquez, of course, free to start this race, but he will start the warm-up lap from the pit lane and then take his place at the back of the grid. And boy, will Gresini be hoping that this isn't a flag-to-flag race, because Alex Marquez will not have another bike to switch across to unless they can make a hasty repair job to it.
Fantastic little pre-race build-up, this, isn't it? Simon at the moment saying that Michele Mercedes not to be seen on the grid. Of course, there'll be pretty fraught scenes down inside the Gresini garage as they try to prep the second bike. This is the message from Race Direction. The former Moto3 and Moto2 world champion will start the warm-up lap from pit lane, and then he will start the Thai Grand Prix over 26 laps from the back of the grid. Shame that, because Alex Marquez was pretty strong in the sprint yesterday. He was in 5th place, finishing ahead of a pretty good battle for that 5th, which involved the likes of Morbidelli, Bezzecchi, the Gian Antonio. As we mentioned, all of those 8 Ducatis inside the top 8. Quick word actually on Digia, of course. Unfortunately, we say a premature farewell to the Italian. At the end of today's race action here in Thailand, he'll be straight on a plane back to Europe to undergo significant surgery on his damaged left shoulder, which he dislocated at the Red Bull Ring in Austria back in August. And then he will commence what is a very long and painstaking rehabilitation, likely only really to recover 100% fitness in time for the season opener. So a pretty long winter ahead for Fabio Di Gian Antonio, who steps aside then for Sepang and for Valencia. The big rumours, we're hoping for an announcement straight after the Thai Grand Prix, or maybe tomorrow or Tuesday, that Andrea Iannone is coming in to replace Digia in Malaysia, the Pertamina Endurovia 46 racing team, offering the Maniac a MotoGP lifeline potentially, although maybe just for a one-off appearance. It will be great to see the Maniac back in MotoGP competition. Been a tough weekend, certainly in the dry conditions, hasn't it, for the factory Aprilia's Maverick Viñales. No grip whatsoever is how he described his sprint yesterday as he dropped down to 20th place. Not a bad ride by Aleix Espargaro, despite a real nasty pain in his neck after a heavy crash at turn 12 on Friday morning. Will the rain offer some hope maybe for the Nuali factory? Well, let's find out as Paolo Bonora joins Simon.
He does. Paolo, really curious if this wet conditions, we know you've been having a tough time in the dry, you know, the rider's speaking about lack of rear grip on entry and exit in the wet. What are you hoping for? Also, not just your riders, but Raul Fernandez been quite strong this weekend.
Yeah, Simon, we haven't done so many laps in the wet, so we kept the historical data to understand which could be the setting for the bikes. To be honest, in this condition, it's much more related to the riders, and it will be tricky because it is not fully wet. There is only a few drops of rain, and probably will be there will be a changing during the race. So will be very funny for the fan at home, not so much for us here. But yeah, we are trying to do our best to give to the rider the best setting.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks very much, Simon. Thanks to Aprilia boss Paolo Bonora. Yeah, it's been a difficult weekend in the dry conditions for the Aprilia's Maverick Viñales, saying the Aprilia simply just does not work here in Buriram with the sort of on the slick allocation, that reinforced heat-resistant rear tyre just offering no grip whatsoever, no confidence. In particular for Maverick Viñales. We just saw there official MotoGP medic Dr. Angel Chartre just checking what maybe was a bit of a knock on the chest for Alex Marquez in that sighting lap spill at turn 11. Alex clearly back in a new set of leathers and ready to start from the back of the grid here in Buriram. What about the factory KTMs now then? Jack Miller in not too dissimilar conditions here in Thailand 2 years ago when he was on the factory Ducati was fighting for the victory. Let's see what Thriller Miller and Brad Binder can do as we get the thoughts of KTM boss Francesco Guidotti.
Yes, Francesco, these different conditions, I imagine your riders, Brad Binder, Jack Miller, seeing possible opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, after yesterday on dry condition, we couldn't really perform. So on the wet, we have maybe different chance, new chance. Let's say it's a new opportunity. We had 10 minutes warm up on the wet, so we had some indication, some information from this morning, and it's never wet at the same level, but I think we can have a good chance.
One other thing, we know how good Jack is in these conditions, but also looking from the outside, it looks like your machine works well in the wet as well.
Normally, yes. We won here two years ago with Miguel on full wet, and this year we didn't have many chance to ride on the wet. So yeah, can be a surprise here as well.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, they'll be hoping to spring a surprise here today, won't they? The factory KTMs, of course. It was their last success here in Thailand 2 years ago as Miguel Oliveira prevailed in these difficult conditions. That was the nasty tip-off on the sighting lap for Alex Marquez. We've just seen there, haven't we? Mark just cross over to the opposite side of the Gresini Racing Garage just to check on his younger sibling, who is looking for, well, big ask now, you feel, for Alex Marquez to register his first top six. None in the last 4 Grand Prix, only one actually in the last 8 since this Saxon Ring podium on that memorable day for the Marquez family when they became the first brothers to stand on a Premier Class podium together since Imola in 1997. Takuma and Nobuatsu, part of the famous Fireball brothers from Japan. Just look at the concentration, look at the focus on the face of Pekka Bagnaia. He's getting some instructions there from one of his data technicians, also keeping himself away from all the distractions. I don't think it's sunglasses weather, Jorge, but we'll let you off when you're 22 points clear at the top of the World Championship. It was a fairy tale Thai Grand Prix last year for the Pramac Racing star as he took the pole, sprint and Grand Prix victory treble, and that was his 150th Grand Prix start as well. But we are building up now. We are just about 10 minutes away from what is such a crucial Thai Grand Prix. The gloves go on for Bagnaia. Very soon it'll be the gloves off as they go toe-to-toe once again over 26 laps. The rain, though, has come to play, and it will play a big role in who will take our latest 25-point haul in this year's MotoGP World Championship. The helicopter picks its way through from the heavy cloud cover, which has been the main feature of race day number 18 so far here in Thailand. Of course, a lot of the paddock jetting out to Kuala Lumpur later on this evening, as we will take a little bit of a breather, a pause here in the commentary box as we get set for the national anthem of Thailand.
ประเทศไทยรวมเลือดเนื้อชาติเชื้อไทยเป็นประชารัฐพระไทยของไทยทุกส่วนอยู่ดำรงคงไว้ได้ทั้งมวลด้วยไทยร่วนหมายรักสมัครที่ไทยนิรักสงบแต่ถึงรบไม่คราดเอกราชจะไม่ให้ใครข่มขีสละเลือดทุกหยาดเป็นชาติไทยทะลางประเทศชาติไทยทุกวี
has brightened up the mood here, hasn't it, in Thailand? A beautiful rendition of the Thai national anthem from Kaltera Somprakon, joined by one of the local orchestras. As now the clock ticks down, you can just sense that there's a different atmosphere, a different vibe, and the build-up to this Buriram Grand Prix. What about the prospects of Pertamina Enduro VR46 racing featuring in the battle for the podium? Let's get the pre-race thoughts of Marco Bezzecchi and Fabio Di Gianantonio's boss, Pablo Nieto, who's with Simon.
Yes, he is, and really curious what you think, Pablo, because both of your riders, you know, not having to worry about a championship hanging over them on Ducatis at a circuit where Ducati's been dominant, and both of them good riders. Like Fabio's been surprising us regularly, and Bez has won in these sort of conditions before in Argentina.
Yeah, first of all, it's the last race from Fabio, so it's going to be a very important race for him, because in the end, the feeling that we will get here is going to be the feeling that we will have for all the winter, so it's very important to try to make a very good race, but we know also that in this condition it's going to be very hard. Anyway, we have to try to make our ways for him and see what happens. With Bez, I think he can make a very good race. It's going to be very, very important the first lap. The corner number 3 is going to be a little bit dangerous, because in the end you're going after the straight, and in the first lap it's going to be a little bit dangerous. But anyway, we will see. Difficult condition.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, very difficult conditions. Tricky and treacherous in Thailand, isn't it, for the MotoGP field to tackle. Yeah, Fabio Di Gianantonio, he certainly will be looking for a good race, a good boost to take into what's going to feel like a very long winter for Digia. Of course, he'd have been hoping to have made his debut on the factory GP25, or certainly a hybrid of the 24-25 at the post-race test in Valencia, but sadly ruled out until the opening salvo of 2025 at the Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia in early February. That will be the first time we'll see Fabio Di Gianantonio on top of the latest spec factory GP25. The only other GP25s on next year's grid will be in the hands of Pecco Bagnaia and Marc Marquez. Will the MotoGP World title still be in the hands of Pecco Bagnaia when we go racing back here in Buriram next March? Well, that question, we'll have our answers to that over the next 3 or 4 weeks or so, maybe even next weekend in Sepang if things go the way of Jorge Martin.
You can just feel the tension now building on this grid, in this grandstand, in this commentary box. So much is on the line this afternoon. The 25 points, but potentially a defining day in the World Championship. It's conditions such as this where the fine line between hero and zero is as small as it is in any Grand Prix or in any kind of condition. Jorge Martin trying his level best to stay as calm and as cool as possible as he communicates with his team. It is an afternoon for cool heads. It's an afternoon for those who can adapt the best. And is it an afternoon for those who have very little to lose?
Love that. Jorge Martin, the last person he's talking to before he steps on that GP24 is his father, Angel Martin, who is a constant companion at his son's side. What a story it will be for Angel Martin and the Martin family if he was to win the World Championship this year. Of course, Jorge Martin coming through the Red Bull MotoGP Rookies Cup programme. It was that Aragon selection event where if he'd been turned down there, it was story over, game over in terms of a professional racing career for Jorge Martin. Yet here he stands, 5 races or less from claiming the biggest prize in world motorcycle racing. 5 races between Martin and being crowned the 2024 MotoGP World Champion. This grid would have felt tense ahead of a dry race. It feels even more tense, doesn't it? Even more nervy ahead of what is going to be clearly a wet race here in Buriram as the BMW safety car peels away from the grid. The mechanics, the assistants will all clear, and then it's just man and machine versus the elements here in Thailand. A little glance to his right there from Pecco Bagnaia, who starts from pole position. Jorge Martin then with his special Martinator helmet here in Buriram. He's on the front row of the grid, 22 points clear in the World Championship. Enea Bastianini, his best qualifying since round 2 in Portimao. Can he make it the double win here after his sprint success on Super Saturday? But Bagnaia needs a big Sunday from pole position here in Buriram.